Why would a child come to be a bully? What's going on? Some of the primary reasons is, number one, they're looking for attention. Whatever that reason is. So one way to, if your child is being a bully, to see maybe if they're looking for the attention, you can usually tell pretty quickly, then that might be actually a pretty quick fix. Number two, another reason that they might get into the habit of bullying is it's actually just an indication that they're struggling with something, right? Which I guess in a way is similar to number one, that they're looking for the attention. They're actually really struggling with something and they don't know what else to do. Welcome back to another episode of the Jews Next Door. This month, we focused on child safety. We spoke about, we covered everything. We really spoke about technology. We spoke about domestic abuse. We spoke about child abuse. We spoke about substance abuse. And this was a very, very intense month of going through so many important topics. And it's obviously important in its own right. And one of the reasons that it's so crucial is that it's a major player in raising our children in the way that we hope that they will follow. As Maslow explains, putting child safety at the bottom rung, meaning if you look at Maslow's, triangle, the reason he did that is because it is one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental need, according to Maslow's needs of the child. Because a child needs to feel safe before they can even begin to think about anything else, about developing anything further. And as parents, we cannot begin to think about doing anything else for our child before we first and foremost make sure that they have their safety. And so again, once a child is safe, then we can start helping to work on growing their social skills and their passion towards Judaism and towards Hashem and Torah and Tefillah and all of those things. And that's why this podcast is built in the way that it is, in terms of we started with building a relationship with a child. Then we're going to child safety. Next month, we're going to be focusing on shalom bayis, going to emotional health, a couple of different major fundamental things. And then once we have those things down pat, then we can go on to deal with Jewish parenting in a more fundamental way. But we can only do that once we have this first and foremost. So, a couple of deeper ideas on this first point. Number one, research has shown that families that have healthy rules shows that kids actually feel safer when they have rules, right? And that will actually be the basis of their future flourishing. It's an important idea, meaning if a child feels, and we've spoken about this before, if a child is playing in a place that has, let's say a cliff, if there's no fence around that cliff, the child's not going to feel safe to go and play comfortably. So we need to put fences. We need to give healthy rules. And sometimes, yes, it needs to be explained and the child needs to understand it. But that's such a crucial part. But I want to make one very, very crucial caveat, which is that child safety applies not only to physical safety, but as well to emotional safety, right? And that, if you've been following in the news, everything that was going on with social media and the Surgeon General's warning about with Instagram. I mean, these technology that we spoke about here was a lot about the use, but there's also so much emotional damage that is done, as we see, and that it's done on purpose through these apps to our child. So we have this topic of child safety, and that's why we set out really to cover these areas, right? The bullying, the child abuse, the technology, the domestic abuse, and substance abuse, which unfortunately are very, very prevalent within our community, as we saw some specific stats over the episodes, and it's very sad, it's very scary. And one of the major themes that kept coming up in each of the episodes, which is not a coincidence as to why this was our first topic, was the relationship between a parent and a child. And perhaps that is the biggest way to ensure that one's child will be safe, right? Meaning, let's understand this. Let's break this down. If a parent and a child have a good relationship, then even if there is something that is threatening a child's safety, whether, let's say, someone is looking to bully the child, or a child is actually becoming a bully, whether it's cyberbullying or physical violence, or someone is trying to influence a child to use substances. Whenever any of these things that threaten our safety come our way, if we have that relationship, then the child's going to come to the parent and they're going to tell them. If we go one step deeper, this is exactly how Yosef, when he was going through such a challenging time in Mitzrayim, away from his family for many, many years, he's presented with such a hard test of really resisting his temptations and so many different challenges he had. But when he was really, really, really right there, he was in the trenches, he was on the cusp of failure. What caused him to succeed? It was the image of his father. Well, what does that mean? It means that he was thinking, what would my father want me to do? And the only reason that happens is because of the relationship that Yosef had with Yaakov. This is step one. And this is why the first topic of our podcast was creating a relationship with one's child, right? So we've said it again, and we've said it over and over again. But first and foremost, we need to have and develop that relationship with our child. And one of the things that is so important in developing that relationship with our child is that we cannot get caught up in the things that our children do and overreact. Of course, it is first and foremost, it's hard. I get it. I totally understand. I'm right there with you 100%. And I want to use the word and there as opposed to but, which is something very important to do with children. Because when we say but, it negates everything we just said. So if I would have said but there, it would have been said, oh, it's very hard, but really, I don't really feel how hard it is because you really should be doing this. No. I'm not saying it is hard. 100,000%. It's very, very hard. And we should be reacting. And there should be appropriate consequences. But here is a but not to the extent that they become more afraid of us than the consequence. We have to be able to remove the action from the child. That is crucial. A child, as we do as well, made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. But does that make them a bad child? If we make a mistake, are we a bad person? I hope that we wouldn't say that to ourselves. And if we are, then we have to stop that. We have to stop that self-talk because that's unhealthy. That is unhealthy. It's not good. It's really important to stop that. So just like we are not a bad person, if we make a mistake, so too it's the same thing with our child. And if we take that approach, we will be able to really not just upkeep, but to actually build the relationship in those times of real difficulty and real frustrations. Because if at those times, instead of we breaking it down, we are in a proper way saying, you know what, I am frustrated and there is a consequence, but you're not breaking down the relationship, you're actually making it stronger. What doesn't kill someone, what doesn't hurt someone actually just ends up making you stronger. And this is actually the whole entire idea, the whole entire educational goal of Gen Aleph. The whole educational goal, everything about the whole entire curriculum that we have from the University of Washington, everything it is to increase bonding between parents and children. Because that is the most effective way to stop a child from going and getting involved with drugs or alcohol. And it's proven research-based curriculum. And the crux of it all is the relationship that we have with our children. As one person put it, when you are disciplining your child, it needs to be in a way that where the relationship is not harmed by your response. Let me say that again. When you are disciplining a child, it needs to be done in a way where the relationship is not harmed by your response. We can give constructive feedback and still maintain the relationship. And if anything, build it up more. So that's idea number one. The second way to really ensure that one's child is safe is to really make sure that our child has healthy self-esteem. As I mentioned before, if you look at yourself as a bad person, so to speak, when you do something wrong, when you make a mistake, so that means that you have an unhealthy, to an extent, self-esteem. And if that's something going on with you already, then that might be going on with your child as well. It might be the way that you react to your child. We need to build up our children. One of the ways to do this is by really practicing and mastering this concept that we literally just discussed of the way that we react to a child. Because if we're able to separate the action from the child, so will they, right? They'll be able to learn to self-talk in a way that is healthy. They will, as opposed to, let's say, when, the other day I was playing basketball with one of my children and he missed a shot and he's like, "Oh, I'm so bad." So wait, whoa, let's pause game. Pause game. What's going on there? Why is that the self-talk? That's an unhealthy way, right? So we have to pause game. We got to talk about that. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The way that we react to ourselves. Maybe that's because that's the way that we were parented. Maybe that's the way we treat ourselves. But we have to stop that cycle. Right now, we have to commit to breaking that cycle, because if we break that cycle and we choose to build our children up, that will be one of the greatest ways to make sure that they are safe. Another way to do this is by giving our children opportunities to flourish and giving them recognition for their efforts, right? This builds both autonomy and self-worth. And that's huge. That's huge. That's a really, really, really important thing. When a child is not insecure, so then they don't succumb to danger. Any of these dangers, right? Personally, I can talk in a very personal way. I was bullied as a child, and I know that it affected me much more because of the fact that I didn't have such great self-esteem back then. And my self-talk at that time was not great. I didn't have the skills that I needed to be able to pick myself back up. And therefore it affected me much more. So in the adverse, if we can build up our children, then even when, let's say they are being bullied, then they could just stand right up to it. They say, I don't care what you're trying to do to me right now. I know that I'm great. I know that I'm a human being, and that's not the way that I deserve to be treated. As opposed to if their self-talk is negative, so then we're in a very, very, it's a dangerous thing. It's a very, very dangerous place. So we see that the fundamental level of child safety is the basis of the child spilling over to many parts of their life and their future. What I want to do now is I want to go through one particular thing. I mean, I would love to go through each of the different components of the episodes, but I want to really harp on bullying for a little bit. I want to focus in on bullying because I want to make sure, and I think Dr. Novick gave an incredibly clear definition, but I want to make sure that there's a couple of other things that I want to make sure it's clear and also expound on a little bit more. First things first, bullying is not the same as being mean. Bullying is not the same as being mean. Okay? Hard moments happen. That's normal. Friendships have ups and they have downs. That's normal. Bullying is different. Okay? What does that mean? Okay, let's understand. Let's break it down. So first things first, let's go through if our child is the bully. So first, why would a child come to be a bully? What's going on? Some of the primary reasons is, number one, they're looking for attention. Whatever that reason is. So one way to, if your child is being a bully, to see maybe if they're looking for the attention, you can usually tell pretty quickly, then that might be actually a pretty quick fix. Number two, another reason that they might get into the habit of bullying is it's actually just an indication that they're struggling with something, right? Which I guess in a way is similar to number one, that they're looking for the attention. They're actually really struggling with something and they don't know what else to do. Number three is that they have a hard time with self-regulation. They don't know how to self-regulate, and therefore they need those skills. They need that guidance from you as the parent, or maybe you need outside help, but they need help. They need guidance with how to self-regulate. It's also typically a sign that a child doesn't have typical control and might need to be evaluated, maybe. And it also could mean that they're not taking others' feelings into account, right? They're not empathizing. They're not able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Now, what I want to just point out is that from this list, being bad is not one of the reasons. We don't believe in people being bad inherently. Actions can be bad. People are not bad. People can always be rehabilitated from their bad deeds, right? This is the concept of teshuvah, right? We believe that at any time, even at the very, very last moment, the Gemara references many times, at any time a person can go and do teshuvah. And we strongly believe in that. It's an incredible concept that Hashem gave us. If you were to look at someone as bad, then there's no such thing as that. But being that we have this concept of tshuva, so being a bad person is not the reason that a person is a bully. And on this topic of bullying, just looking at it from the Torah's perspective, we know that the Torah outright rejects bullying, right? If someone embarrasses someone in public. If you're looking for a great way to have some good, clean, kosher fun with your children through the powerful effect of music, look no further because J Karaoke is here. J Karaoke gives one and all the platform to belt out their favorite tunes from a library of thousands of Jewish songs, hundreds of artists and genres across multiple decades of incredible Jewish music. Personally, I know that I love singing. I love it. I love karaoke, but I was really never able to get into it because it wasn't the Jewish songs. And that's where J Karaoke comes in with their huge selection. From the latest hits to the classics, they even have nursery rhymes for your little ones. And with features like key changes to help you sing, to make you more comfortable as you're singing, and speeding it up or slowing down the song, they have really thought of everything. To enjoy Jewish karaoke your way, all you need to do is head to jkaraoke.com. Choose a subscription that fits for you. And to make it even more fun, you could purchase their state-of-art karaoke kit, which gives you the feeling as if you are today's top singer. You can insert whoever you feel it is. Connect your kit to any device, like it could be a laptop, computer, a tablet, whatever it is, and you plug in your speaker, plug in your J Karaoke microphone, and you sing away. It's as easy as that. That's all it is, and it's really fun. I checked out their website. Really looks amazing. They have an incredible amount of song selection. Anything you want. They got Thank You Hashem. They got Mordechai Shapiro. They really got it all. You can subscribe monthly for just $4.99 a month, yearly for $49.99, and we have a special deal here for you. For any of our listeners, if you use the code Jews Next Door, DOR, you get an additional 10% off. And if you don't want your children to be using a device with internet, J Karaoke's got you covered. You can download the app onto your desktop. Once you have it up, turn off the internet, let them sing all day long without the internet. Check out J Karaoke today and let the fun begin. According to Tosfos in Masechah Sota, the Tosfos says there that embarrassing someone in public is the equivalent of Yaharog Val Yavor. It's equivalent to the capital crimes of Yaharog Val Yavor. Right? So we need to make sure that our child knows that it is not our value to bully others. That means saying explicitly to them, in our family, we do not treat others that way. That's a very powerful statement. It's a very powerful statement for a child to understand. This is our family value. In our family, we don't do that. In our family, we don't talk that way. And the best way for us to do to make sure that we give over that lesson to our children, besides for just saying that, is to make sure that we have to, parenting is like a mirror. We have to make sure that we ourselves careful not to embarrass others, especially our children. Sometimes this happens by accident, but, and here's a really strong but, we need to make sure it never happens. We need to make sure that we're never embarrassing our children. We need to be careful about the way we talk about other people at our Shabbos table. We need to be careful about the way we talk about other people in our car rides with our family. Whenever we are, really, even when our children are not present, we should never be doing this. But it gets even heightened when our child is present and they pick up on everything and we are constantly modeling. So if the way we talk about people and the way we treat people is actually in a demeaning way, in an embarrassing way, then that's obviously what our children are going to be picking up on. The last thing that a bully needs is to be bullied out of being a bully. What do I mean by that? If a bully is doing it because of, impulsivity. So we need to train them to find alternative ways to react in those moments. But we're not going to get our child to stop bullying by bullying them, by taking a very harsh approach with them and saying, you can't act that way and going very, very intense with them. That is not going to help, right? Again, bullying we can't bully someone out of being a bully. That's not going to work, right? So number one is that if it's done impulsively, we need to help train them to find other ways to react. That's number one. Number two, we have to help them find other ways to be seen and to really be seen without harming others. How can we make sure that they feel seen? Because there's something, like we said, if they're looking for that attention, so how can we make sure that they feel seen? We also really need to take a hard look, like I said before about the modeling, we need to take a hard look at the content that's being seen in the home. If you have TV going on in the home, if you have movies, whatever it is, so what types of shows are they watching, right? Do we laugh at, let's say even just at comedies or comedians who are bullying or talking down at others? And obviously, yes, sometimes in comedy that is the purpose, but just realize what type of message that sends, right? Or do we connect with family members by teasing? Do we call family members names? Do we have nicknames that are, denigrating? I would hope not, but again, it's a very important thing to look at. We have to also provide them with opportunities to empathize, right? We said before that maybe they don't have the ability to empathize. Okay, so therefore, maybe we need to build that in for them. As an example, just one practical tip, one practical idea of doing this is maybe we can help them by, they don't know how to empathize yet. Fine, let's write a letter together saying sorry, right? You don't need to actually send it. You won't send it yet. Fine. That'll be for the next step later on. But first things first, just go through the process, right? Go through the process of writing it out. And you might need to guide them the first couple of times. But by doing that, you're helping them to really tap into when they're saying sorry and they're writing out an apology. So you're starting to really feel the other's emotions. And that's a huge way to help train your child to be able to see, wow, I am really affecting someone else when I do this. Maybe they just didn't understand. But now as they really are going through that process, that could be huge. That could be huge. Also, another thing is maybe in that letter writing process, or maybe not, to help them to understand that someone else went through a hardship because of them. Again, one thing I want to make sure is really clear here. We're not trying to shame a child, but we're trying to help them empathize, right? Guilt and shame are very, very different. Shame means you are a bad person. Guilt is what I did was bad. That's necessary. Guilt is necessary. This goes back to what we were saying before. Is a person a bad person when they make a mistake, or did they do something that is bad? We do need to recognize that sometimes we do something that's bad, right? So that's an important thing. That's all within the framework of if our child is the bully. Now, what if our child is being bullied? So first things first, I just want to say it can be so painful to see our child going through that. So first things first, when we first find out, we need to take a big breath and realize at this time, it's not about us. Right? It's not about the fact that our own feelings or anger. It's not about like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset. I can't believe that someone is bullying my child. Yes, it's understandable to have those feelings. But right now, what your role as the parent in that situation is to be supportive of your child. And that's it. It's anything that you can do to just support your child, right? So therefore, when they come to you, first things first, just listen. Just listen. No chiming in. At the end, ask them questions with curiosity, right? And then you can go through with them. You can tell them how to assess if it's being bullying based off of what we learned from Dr. Novick and what we were saying before. Now, if at that time your child sees that you're becoming distressed, they're going to get distressed. So obviously it's easier said than done, but we have to really, really, really try to hold back our own emotions, because at that time, what our child needs from us is just to be supportive. And in order to be supportive, we have to take our own emotions out. If our child's being bullied, so we can help them by doing some role playing, right? We can do some role playing and figuring out, okay, first things first, we go find a safe adult. Who are those safe adults? Who are those people who are that are in your life, in our child's lives, that they can safely go to, even when the parent's not around? So for example, let's say it's at school or in camp with summer coming up, or at shul, at youth groups. Who are those safe people? To go through that very, very clearly with your child. So that way they know. Also, expressing confidence in your child's ability to problem solve, right? Because we don't want our child to think of them as a victim. Our child doesn't want us to think of them as a victim. They don't want our perception of them to change. So That's, the next thing we do. And lastly is to make sure to monitor their interactions and don't sweep things under the rug, right? We have to really just be on top of it, be vigilant to make sure to be on top of what's going on with our children. If we already saw that there was some time that our child was bullied, so we should make sure to keep on top of it. I want to go over now to the technology episode. Dr. Eli Shapiro, this episode had so many incredible ideas. I love the idea that, the way we approach our children with technology is the way that we should be approaching them driving a car, that we would never go and, the first time a child is driving a car, that we would just go and give them the keys and say, hey, enjoy. We would never do that. It needs to come with a lot of preparation, with a lot of conversations. That is so incredibly important. And it's also really important in terms of child safety with regards to technology, is to understand that child safety is not just putting a filter on. It's about the child not sharing inappropriate content and about them not experiencing inappropriate content. And that means in all areas of life, male-female dynamics, values that we don't agree with, like drinking and gambling and touching before marriage, all of these different things. And in terms of technology, having times that are sacred times that we don't have technology, right? So, Shabbos is this incredible gift where we take time off on the phone, and that people not in the Jewish world are starting to really see that and valuing it. And people are, taking days of rest from technology, and that's awesome. I want to just mention something I saw the other day on social media that it hit me hard. It really hit me hard. There was a child that was given a prompt on an assignment to write down. It said, if I had 100 friends, I would, and then the child had to fill it in. And this child drew a picture of them turning their phone off. And they wrote, if I had 100 friends, I would turn the phone off. I found this to be very profound and very, very telling. Our children, unfortunately, look to cell phones and their devices to fill a void. And if we can help them to fill that void, which may mean that they need help with social skills, or it may mean that they need help with their self-esteem like we've been speaking about, or many other things, then we can avoid the unhealthy use of devices as an escape, because that is really where things can get dangerous. If our children are looking towards a device as a way of getting out of something, as a way of escaping something, that is where we really start to get dangerous. So I hope that these deep dive into this topic of child safety, as we wrap up this incredibly important topic, I hope this deep dive gave a little bit more context and a little bit more depth and practical ideas that we can think about regarding child safety. The idea of really, really making sure that we have this great relationship with our child, and the ability to separate the action from our child, that just because someone does something bad does not make them bad. That is so important. And the ability to build up our child's self-esteem. I can't even say enough how important that is. And this idea within technology of helping our children to not use devices as an escape. I hope you gained a lot from this episode. These episodes in general on child safety really added a lot to my knowledge, and I hope they did as well for you. And I hope this episode helped deepen that knowledge and made it really practical for you. We continue next week with an incredibly special guest episode with Rabbi Shimon Russell, who is one of the most prominent parenting speakers and parenting, real experts within the parenting realm, within our Jewish realm, and really was an incredibly insightful episode. I'm super, super excited to share with you, and I hope you all have a great week.